Hello, security pros. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on today's ESX webinar, 5 strategies to maximize installations during a technician shortage. My name is Riley Hogendorn, and I'm excited to lead this ESX webinar today. Before we dive in, I'd like to provide some tips for those of you joining us for your first ESX webinar. Welcome. You will be muted for the duration of this session, but that does not mean we don't want to hear from you. If a question or comment comes to mind at any point during today's session, click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and I'll ensure we save some time for your questions with our experts. We'll also be recording today's webinar so you can rewatch the on-demand session and share it with your colleagues. Make sure you mark your calendars for ESX 2022, the Electronic Security Expo. This in-person event is designed by and for the pro-installed electronic security and life safety channel on June 14th through 17th in Fort Worth, Texas. We at ESA realize your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending some of that time with us here today. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our experts today. First, we have Kirk Brundage. Kirk Brundage has been working in the alarm industry with Mountain Alarm for the past 8 years. He is passionate about helping people get the peace of mind they deserve through right-fitting their alarm needs. And we have Angela Conley. Angela Conley is a senior commercial account manager at alarm.com. She works with key partners to develop their commercial business strategies and become market leaders. So without further ado, Angela, let's dive in.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Well, if you're like many businesses out there, you are experiencing a staff shortage. The security industry is like so many other businesses out there where maybe you're short on technicians or installers. And so the purpose of today is really to take a look at 5 strategies that have been tried and true and are great ways to maximize your installations. So as Riley had mentioned, my name is Angela Conley. I'm the Senior Commercial Sales Manager at alarm.com. And we're going to review the 5 strategies that are on the screen with you. And right now, we're going to talk about investing in technician training, supporting your support team, using the right tools, reducing customer support needs, and recruiting. With me today is Kirk Brundage of Mountain Alarm. And Kirk is the general manager, and he's going to talk about how these strategies have been successfully implemented within Mountain Alarm. Before we dive into those strategies, Kirk, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Mountain Alarm?
Sure, yeah. So I've worked at Mountain Alarm for the last 8 years. It's a great place to work. We're headquartered in Ogden, Utah. We have several locations throughout the Mountain West states, and we just keep growing. So it's always fun. It's always changing. So I'm married. I have 4 beautiful kids. I live in Reno, Nevada. So definitely enjoy getting outside and enjoying the beautiful surroundings that are around me. So happy to be here and see everyone.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Kirk, can you tell me a little bit more about Mountain Alarm? I mean, you're on the webinar with me today. So are you experiencing any shortages with technicians, installers? You have multiple locations. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So my primary role, so I'm the general manager. So I was working in Ogden in Utah for about 6.5 years. And then Mountain Alarm purchased 2 alarm companies in Reno, Nevada. And so I was asked to go out there and run those and kind of bring them all together and merge the two companies. And in doing so, we found out that most of the techs that we had they had bad attitudes, and they didn't really believe in the Mountain Alarm way of really taking care of the customer. So to be frank, a lot of them just didn't work. So we ended up having to let go most of them and kind of start from scratch. So to start and build a team from scratch during this tech shortage and employee shortage was really, really hard for us. So, in fact, since we had some of these other locations, we brought in technicians from Montana, from Wyoming to come. We flew them in and had them help us just to help keep us up. So yeah, we've definitely been dealing with it just like everybody else.
There we go. Well, thank you for that. So, by the way, if you have questions, please post those in the chat. We do have my colleague Erin Barsanti is in the chat. So post any questions that you do have, any comments. We'd love to hear them. We will be having a Q&A session after this. So we're going to review these 5 strategies and then have some time for questions as well. But strategy number 1 in really maximizing your installations during a tech and installer shortage is investing in training. So Kirk, can you tell us a little bit about what Mountain Alarm has done? And sometimes you might think the last thing that I need to do right now is pull technicians off the field to do more training. But what have you found has worked for Mountain Alarm?
Yeah, so great question. So it's a big thing in our company is to invest in our technicians. It's worth every investment you can just to have them spend that time. A big thing for us is, I think when you look over your tech staff, you see individuals who may be pros at cameras or access control, something like that. And so you could take some of the people who aren't as good and have them partner up. That's just a way that you could continue to have some output as well as train your staff. Through the pandemic, I've seen more and more webinars, just like this one that we're on today. And all the vendors, they're offering more and more trainings that you can do online. And so that's been a big thing for us as well. Like all of you, time is money. And so sometimes what we've done in the past is we've encouraged our techs to do it on their own time. Say, hey, if you become certified in something or take this course or this type of training, then you may get a bonus or you may get a raise. And so it's really helped out all of our guys where you're limited on time and you're limited on your resources. So if they can do it on their own time, it's worth it for them to be able to get that extra money. So that's been a big thing. Like alarm.com, there's tons of trainings, and it's imperative that all of our guys become alarm.com certified, and we just stay up on all the trainings as they come out.
Great, thank you, Kirk. I like that idea of kind of the buddy system, pair somebody who is stronger with somebody who is perhaps newer or weaker in a certain area. And I had one of those bullet points, and we did a dry run last week, but leveraging people who are really good at certain areas and have them become the teacher.
Right.
Because it increases their confidence. It helps them train others. Everybody kind of wins when somebody is recognized for doing something well and then get to train somebody else on that.
Yeah, I mean, they love it. Like when you tell them, hey, you're our best guy at CCTV, and I want you to continue to teach other people, that just empowers them and makes them want to do better. And then when they're actually teaching, they're like, okay, yeah, I am the expert here, so I need to spend the time and show them the ropes.
Right. This picture here on the slide, this is the alarm.com Academy online. So whether you're using alarm.com or a different platform, like you said, many companies do have online training. With alarm.com, gosh, we have hundreds of classes, but you had mentioned there's something called a certified tech training, and it's a series of modules. It takes a while, but by the end of it, they're going to really know their stuff. So I like that you're also providing incentive for your reps, knowing that they're going to need to invest some time as well, and helping them, kind of incentivizing them to do that. All right, strategy number 2, training your support team. So we have our technicians trained, but now we have our support team. These might be the admins that stay in the office, perhaps even customer support that are perhaps doing some tech support or other areas. Kirk, can you tell us a bit about how Mountain trains your support team and why you train your support team?
Definitely. So our support team, so we have some more tech support people who answer the phones. Then we have our other customer service people. And what's great is we encourage all of them to be the same alarm.com certified, right? Even your customer service people, they can do the same courses. They don't actually have to be out there in the field doing it. It's good for them to learn how to use mobile tech or AirFX and or any other things, just how to troubleshoot and stop the beeps or do anything like that. So that's been a big thing for us. We want to continue to invest in all of our people. And so we do the same types of trainings. And, when you talk to your customer service people, like I had one of my customer service agents, she came to me and said, people keep talking to me about this panel, and I keep telling them how to fix it, but I've never even seen one. And so it's good to let them have some hands-on experience with those as well. So when they are doing some just minor troubleshooting, they can take care of those people. So if you don't have to roll a truck and someone can just resolve it there in the office, it saves you time and money.
Excellent, 100%. Just that if they can do it from the office, reduce those truck rolls, those go backs, that's really key, just to saving everybody a lot of time.
Definitely.
All right. Strategy number 3, using the right tools. So that's a pretty general term, but there are some specific tools that you brought up when we did our dry run, Kirk, of how your technicians are saving time, how they're using certain tools to reduce the amount of time that they're on a job, as well as maybe not even having to roll that truck out there, whether that's your technicians or your support staff. Can you tell us about some of the tools that you've used to reduce those times that they're on site, or even reducing the need to go on site?
Definitely. So one of the questions I asked when I was interviewing my technician, so we use alarm.com, but we also use other vendors. We're not exclusively with alarm.com, but I did ask my technicians, I said, okay, so what would your jobs be like if everything was on alarm.com? And their eyes would just light up and they're like, oh my gosh, it'd be so much better because of the tools that they have. But with all vendors, there's lots of online tools that you can use, specifically with alarm.com. You have mobile tech right from your phone. With the AirFX, if you're logging in onto the customer portal. And, for me, like I remember one time I was at dinner with some friends, and they, one of their sensors had fallen off their door. And so they kept on having to bypass it every time they would arm it. And I was like, oh, that's easy. And I just pulled up mobile tech right there at dinner and just deleted the sensor. It's like, all right, yeah, we'll get someone out there to come fix that for you. But just to be able to resolve those issues right there when it's easy. So mobile tech is just, if you're not using it, you're crazy, because it's awesome. So that's been a big thing for us. There's the wizards when you're walking people through, that makes it really easy as well. So yeah, there's great tools out there.
Okay, thanks, Kirk. I'm going to go slide back just so everybody can see this again. So what Kirk's referring to is the Mobile Tech app. That is an app from alarm.com that's designed for technicians to do an entire installation for video, access control, intrusion, any automation, all right from the app on their phone. And you can see when I click on this slide, I'll go back, there we go, that it has really simple things like it'll scan the serial number of a module or of a camera, and it's just going to automatically add it for them. So I used to work in tech support. I remember all of the time getting technicians calling in because they misread a MAC address. They thought it was an 8, but it was a 0 because they didn't have their glasses with them, or they fat fingered the number, and it just won't learn in. I don't know what's going on. And it turns out they just had the numbers wrong. So little things like that add up to a lot of extra time. So when you can just, for example, use a QR code to add a camera or access control, that's really huge for a tool that can save people a lot of time. And then on the right side of this slide here, we have a checklist. Alarm.com, we have the installation checklist where the installer will go through and they need to kind of do a system check, run through everything, make sure that it's all done correctly from the start. A lot of times I know places will run a report of that to our security providers to ensure that their technicians are installing everything correctly. And the big reason for that is those callbacks, those having to re-roll a truck because something wasn't done correctly. I know we're talking about technician shortage, but that's going to save time just to ensure that it's kind of front loaded, it's done correctly from the start.
Yeah, one other thing maybe I can mention as well is, the support that we get from different vendors kind of varies. But one thing that's nice that I found with alarm.com, I'm sure you guys have also seen this, is the knowledge base. That's been a huge thing for us. When you call into customer support, they're looking up the same, tech support with alarm.com, they're looking at the same thing, they're looking in that knowledge base. And, customers have access to this as well. Your techs have access, the customer service people have access to this. So it's a huge time saver, and it just walks you right through it. So that's been a big thing for us as well.
That's a perfect segue, Kirk, into strategy number 4 of how do we reduce the customer support needs. Now, again, we're talking about technicians and installers and maximizing those installations, but a big part of that is reducing the need for the customer to even call in the first place. So what you just said there, Kirk, about the knowledge base, have a few bullet points on that, but can you tell us a bit about how Mountain Alarm reduces your customer support needs and what's been effective for you?
Definitely. Yeah. So, when customers call in, and they're needing help, it's always nice if our agents can pull up that knowledge base and walk them through. I had one of my technicians, he was on call, and he had a customer that called in to him and said, "Hey, my video doorbell is not working. Can you help me out?" And it was like 1 a.m. in the morning. He's just like, that's the last thing I want to do is go climb in my truck and drive out there. So he was able to send her the article from the knowledge base, and he had it as well. And he just kind of walked her through the steps and was able to get her back up and running without having to go out there. I don't know why it was so important to take care of this at 1 a.m., but I'm sure you guys all have customers that are just like this. So that's been a big thing for us. We've been able to email out those articles and just really take care of them. Another big thing that I've noticed is the easier it is for customers to use something, the less they'll have to call in and ask for support. So like all you, after a technician's done with something, after they're done with the install, they'll do the training. And with some other vendors, it could take a long time, but with alarm.com, because it is so intuitive, it's 5-10 minutes and you're out of there. And they, after that, if they have questions, the app's just right there to walk them through it. So it makes it a lot easier.
And Kirk, when we spoke last week, I think you said that you require the training be on site with your customers or something along those lines, like your technicians train the customer on site. And if the customer isn't there when the technician's done, they'll actually come back and in person train the customer. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I mean, that's just like a big part of our checklist of what we're wanting to do before we close out the job or whatever. So the technician has to, before we can actually close out that job, he or she has to walk them through it and train them on how you arm it, how you disarm it, how you bypass, and run through everything. And so, a lot of times they'll go and they'll install it and the customer's not there. And so we have to go back, and it's so much easier if you with alarm.com, because it's the training is much faster, so that helps out a lot.
Great. Yeah, and sometimes it's that front loading where it might sound like, hey, that's a lot of extra work to go back and train the customer. But when they're trained correctly, it is in the long run going to reduce a lot of those calls, because they now know how to troubleshoot and they now know how to set some things up that maybe they wouldn't have before.
Yeah,
and it also creates a stickier customer.
Right. That's the last thing you want, is like your customers to not even use their system because they're afraid of it. They're afraid of the siren or if the police will get called. So it's so much better if you just get them trained so they actually use it.
This, I have a screenshot here. So this is actually from my own home, Angela and Sean's home. And I have a camera that's offline. So bullet number 2, and Kirk brought this up, having access to the knowledge base. But the alarm.com user interface, right on the app, if something's not functioning, there's a wizard that walks that customer right through troubleshooting steps of how they could resolve it. So let's say right here, I have a camera offline. It goes offline at 11 o'clock at night. I'm not contacting my security dealer, but now I see that there are steps in a wizard that walks me through some troubleshooting ways that I can get my camera online without needing to contact my security provider. Number 1 is always, is it plugged in? Unplug it, plug it back in. But that's how we'd all start anyways. And Kirk, you had a customer, so kind of an example. I really like this case study of a customer where you were able to really reduce their support needs. Would you like to talk a bit more about them?
Yeah, so in our area, we cover Lake Tahoe, and one of the cities up in Lake Tahoe had several alarm.com accounts. So with this city, they have golf courses, they have the beach with the snack bar, they have a ski resort, so they have all these different locations. And so there was pretty much one guy who was there and he was managing all of it, and so he had a different login for every single thing. So when he was logging in for, because now we're going to open up the ski resort, he would find out, may have to try to remember all of his logins. And so yeah, it was just kind of all over the place. It was really messy. And if you think about all those different categories of offices that they had, it was hard because everything was more seasonal, and that, only certain people needed access to this. And it was just a pain. And this type of customer, he ended up being escalated to me, and so I was dealing with them. So all the support calls were coming to me on my cell phone, and it was me pulling up the knowledge base, walking them through it. And so yeah, we came up with a better solution to reduce all those calls. And the big thing that we did is we upgraded him to the enterprise. So if you're not familiar with enterprise, it's great for people who have multiple locations. It just gives them complete access. It's one login and you can control everything. So that was a big thing for him. Is so within the city that this manager was in, he had different people who were over maintenance for the golf course, or all the support staff for the ski resort. So now with this dashboard, he can go in and he can say, all right, you have access to everything to do with the ski resort, all the lodge, and everything else. And so it just made it so much easier. And, I upgraded him to this last summer, and I haven't had any calls since. So it's been really good for us. So I think just right fitting that customer and giving them what they need so they can do it themselves can really help you and save a lot of time.
That's beautiful. From many support calls to zero. That's a good sign.
Yeah, they love it too, right? I mean, I went and I presented it to them, and their eyes were excited about this too. So it's, even though it was a little bit more money for them, they saw that it was worthwhile just to be able to control everything in this manner.
Right. It's the hassle factor. While it might be a little money up front, the amount of hassle for that. And like you said, the guy, that's not his job. He's not an IT manager. He's kind of somebody who's maintenance, but also just trying to take care of all of this.
Exactly.
That's great that you could reduce that support load. All right, and getting towards the end before we move on to Q&A, strategy number 5, I created this acronym, always be recruiting. So Kirk, when we spoke last week, you had quite a few great tips of how to get new technicians. Yes, we want to reduce the support load. We want to reduce how many truck rolls they're doing. But at a certain point, we're also just going to need more technicians. So how do you recruit your installers and technicians? What tips do you have for our listeners today?
Sure. Yeah. So a couple of them that have been successful for me is one, I always just carry my business cards with me. And wherever you see technicians, you have to go talk to them. I always just will go up to them and introduce myself. Hey, I'm Kirk with Mount Alarm. We're in the same industry. How's it going at ADT, or and ask them how they're enjoying their job, and ask them if they're satisfied. If they are, great. Nice to meet you. If you ever need anything, let me know. But if they're not, that's when you can give me your business card. I've pulled over with my family. We're driving somewhere, and I'm like, hey, there's a tech in a work van, and I'll go over and approach them. So it's just important to always be recruiting, right? If you are the best of the best in your industry, you want these people to work for you, and they want to work for you as well. And that's part of my second part is when you talk to your techs, see who they know. Most techs know each other. They probably work with each other at a different company, but we offer great recruiting bonuses. So if they recommend one of their friends and they get hired, and we bring them on and they work out with us, then we give them a referral bonus. And that's been a big thing. But utilize your techs. They know lots of people in the industry. the last thing that's pretty cool is we have a technical school there in Reno, and they teach a lot of low voltage classes. And so we partnered up with them. We've donated some of our B stock. We've come into their classes and talked to them and taught them more about the alarm industry. And, you know, most of these people that are graduating are going to, like, you know, Comcast, Spectrum, like those types of companies. And by us being there and showing, say, hey, you know, you don't have to go to these places, you know, come check out alarms. You know, we also do fire alarms. Come check out our company. And, you know, we've had good success there, and just being part of that community. We've been able to recruit people there as well. So it's not easy. It's something you just have to stay on all the time. You know, I tell HR, like, always just leave a job application open so people can apply, because, you know, if there's a good tech, you want them no matter what.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Kirk. I like the family. Hang tight. I'm going to pull over and talk to this guy on his lunch break.
Yep. Family knows I got to do it too.
Yep. Excellent. All right. So one of the last slides, just briefly, in case you are not familiar with who alarm.com is, you know, we tried to make this so it was relevant to everybody, not just if you're using alarm.com. But if you are not familiar with us and are interested in learning more, just a brief slide to show a bit of what we do. With alarm.com for business, we work with panel manufacturers, multiple panel manufacturers, and we tie together video, access control, panels, and temperature monitoring all into one app and one website, and obviously make it very easy to install for the technicians. So encourage you to take a look at alarm.com if you are not familiar with us, and we'd be happy to provide a demo and tell you a bit more about our platform. All right, with that, we're going to open it up to Q&A. Any questions for myself or for Kirk, maybe even any comments about what you have found has worked to maximize your installations and to help out with a tech shortage. Aaron, any questions in the chat to start out with, or Riley?
Yeah, there's one in the chat right now. It says, Kurt, when you moved workers from one area to another, how did that affect their original area? Did your service and job lead time go up by weeks or months?
Great question. Yeah. So we brought out 2 technicians 3 times to Reno, and you know, we looked at, and I guess we are lucky enough to have multiple locations, but these locations were a little bit less busy. You know, they might have only been out 2 or 3 weeks out on jobs for their backlog. And so we had the luxury of being able to pull them from there, and, you know, the rest of the team that stayed behind could handle it. They didn't get too far behind. So, you know, you just kind of have to pick and choose where you can pull it from. But if you have technicians who you can pull from another place, you know, it's worth the flight and the hotels just to have that extra help so you can keep installing.
Great. And at this time, I invite all attendees, if you have any questions or comments, just click on the Q&A icon on the bottom of your screen, ask your question, and we can ask it to our experts right now. Our next question says, how do you decide which online classes to have your technicians take?
That's a great question. I mean, it really depends on what you are installing, what's really important to you. So in our company, you know, there's a few vendors that we primarily promote, and those are the ones that we'll spend the time. So like, if you have, you know, like, for instance, we'll talk about access control. So we use alarm.com for our access control. So there's a lot of training that's there. So you know, we pick that training. We say, all right, everyone, you know, this is our primary vendor for access control, so we need everyone to take these trainings. You know, and it's really talking to your operations guy as well, and finding out, you know, where their weaknesses are, and then what's also coming down the pipeline of what we need to be trained on. So it's just a matter of making it right fitted for you.
Great. Looks like this is our last question so far. So again, last call. If you have a question, click the Q&A icon. So far, our last question is there a fee to use the alarm.com mobile tech app?
Oh, so I guess I can answer that. No, I mean, it's free to everyone. So you can just go ahead and download it. As long as you have a normal login for alarm.com, then you can download it. It's great.
Gotcha. We have one other question from Eric Waters. Says, do you pay hourly or piece work?
Do I pay hourly or piecework? We pay hourly for all of our work.
Cool. Okay, it looks like we have one more question. They're in the process of typing, so just hold tight.
I see another question in the chat, Riley. Says, do you offer emergency service? And if so, do you charge extra for that service? And how do you compensate your workers for that? Yes. So yeah, if a customer wants us to come and visit them, after hours, like the on-call, or if it's on a holiday, then we will charge a higher rate for that. As far as our technicians go, we pay them a weekly sum for just being on call, whether or not they answer the phone or not. And then anytime they're actually going and actually working, they clock in. So a lot of times that's going to be overtime, right? Because they have their 40 hours of the week, and so they're getting the time and a half for that. Good question.
Great. Looks like we have one more question. Says, I'm always trying to help my management team improve their recruiting process. The refrain is often something to the effect of, our industry is very unique, so recruiting is different from other common practices. Do you find that this is true for you in your territory?
Yeah, it's funny. I hear the same thing. So we're all part of the same industry. Everyone has the same thought process. Currently, we have, so I have probably about 10 technicians with me there in Reno. And then I also have 2 that are green that are being trained up. And, like we said before, we pick whoever's best at CCTV and we have them train with them for a week or 2 or 3 or 4. And then we move them over to Berg. And you just keep doing that. So I have no problem hiring people that have no experience whatsoever. A lot of times that's even better because you're not having to get rid of all their bad habits. So I don't shy away from it. Obviously, you need people who have some tech background, and in case you have no one else, but you should always be trying to bring up some green people so that you can have some techs in the future.
Great. Another question. Do you borrow any recruiting processes from other industries that you don't think would work, i.e. recruiters?
I have used recruiters in the past. Some of them have worked out, some of them haven't. A lot of times you'll get them and they're kind of dead weight. But I have had some success from recruiters. I think we've gotten a few of our, I think 1 or 2 techs from a recruiter. So you just have to be careful. They are pretty pricey. And what's hard though is if that applicant already gets linked up there with that recruiter, it's hard to go around it. So if you want them, you just have to pay it and bite it.
Great. And looks like last question, possibly. Is the lack of technicians putting a ceiling on your sales team, maybe not wanting to push jobs through due to long wait time?
Oh, absolutely. Right now we're dealing with the AT&T 3G sunset, like all of you are probably. And yeah, so right now we're booked out through April, and it makes it incredibly difficult. The sales team is like, hey, I lost this job because I told them we couldn't get to him until April. And so yeah, it's definitely hard, like all of you. But if you can find ways to get it or squeeze it in so you don't lose them, we've been able to do that. We've offered overtime for some of our technicians if they want to work a Saturday here and there. And I think when you offer it, a lot of technicians are willing to jump in and take on the extra hours just so they can make extra money.
Gotcha. One more question. How is the paperwork done for your techs, electronic or paper? Have you done any efficiency upgrades in that process?
Yeah, so we don't use paper at all anymore. So we have a website where the tech has it on his phone. He just goes on there, he sees all of his jobs, and we do job costing. So he clocks into every job and then applies all of his labor towards that job, and then he clocks out of it. So yeah, we don't use any papers. It's all electronic.
Great. How is the 3G migration going for you?
Great, right? No, I mean, we're getting through it. I'm sure same thing as you guys. We've been reaching out to people for a year now, and it doesn't matter what you tell them or call them or text them or email them, they still just don't respond. So we've gotten a lot done, but we're still going to have some that are just going to sunset, and then we'll get to them when they finally decide to reach out to us. So it's super fun.
Perfect. It looks like, oh, one more question if you have time.
Yeah.
What's your ratio of text to admin staff, sales to text?
That's a great question. So I think we have 18 offices throughout the Mountain West states. So I don't know the total technician count versus admin staff. But if I had to take a guess, I think we're about 400 employees, and I don't know, 280 of them are probably technicians. So then you can kind of do the math from there.
Perfect. Looks like that was our last question. I want to thank the audience for being so active and submitting so many questions. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Kirk and Angela, for the amazing presentation.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining, everyone. Take care.
Yep. See you all next time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.